Good morning, grade 4. Mr. Mo here. Welcome to Theme. Happy April Fool's Day. Today is April 1st, Wednesday. And today we are going to be talking about climates on mountains and how different elevation will affect the weather that we have on the mountains. So, tuck in. Let's get going, shall we? Right, for anybody who's vacationed or traveled to a certain mountain, you know better than anybody that weather on the mountain can be pretty volatile. So let's get into it. So let's get into our aims and success criteria for today. Our aim is to be able to describe a mountainous climate. Our success criteria is that you should be able to tell me what the weather is usually like on a mountain, that you should be able to tell me the difference between a weather forecast and climate, that you should be able to find and compare mountain climates, and you should be able to list the risks associated with mountain climbing. So let's get into it. So close your eyes for a second and try to imagine what it's like being on a mountain. What are the things that you need to prepare for when climbing a mountain? So here we have a picture of the Alps in Europe, Switzerland, France, Italy. Do you think that these mountains always look this way? And now here is a picture of the Andes. Do you think they always look this way? Why do they look different? Why do mountains all look different? Now this is what our homework has to do with this week. You need to look and research 3 cities and do research on the climate and weather in those cities. So one, for example, is Colorado, USA. The nickname of Colorado is the Mile High Stadium. Does the elevation or location impact the weather and climate in those cities? So use Baidu, type in these cities, and write down the information about their climates on the worksheets, 3 of them. Now, while you're completing your worksheets, I want you to keep a couple things in mind. Ask yourself, is today's weather typical of the climate in the mountain range you were given? Also, climate is the average weather conditions of an area looking over weather patterns for up to 30 years. So there is a difference between climate and weather. If anybody has been to the UK, you can compare it to the UK, or what is it like compared to China? Also, keep in mind when you're doing your research that these 3 locations are in 3 different mountain ranges: the Rocky Mountains, the Alps, and the Himalayas. Can you notice any similarities or differences in the areas? Try to compare and contrast all these different locations because they have things in common, but they're certainly all very unique to their individual. Now, grade 4, I want you to put your thinking caps on and think that you are a mountain climber or living in a mountainous area. Why are mountains considered to be a dangerous place to live and operate? What kinds of risks and disadvantages are there for people living in mountainous areas? Pause the video and try to think of why it might be dangerous in these places. Right, well, mountains are tall, and the higher you climb, the lower the temperature gets, and then you have a real problem with hypothermia. Hypothermia is when your body temperature drops below normal temperatures, and this can be a serious problem at the top of the mountain when there's not a lot of help. So you need to wear warm clothes. Also, bad weather is a serious problem on the mountains. As the temperature cools, water can condense and you can have rain out of nowhere that you didn't see coming. Bad weather cuts power lines. Avalanches and mudslides are a serious danger on the mountain. I know in Europe and in the United States, they shoot giant cannons on the side of a snowy mountain to stop avalanches from forming. People always forget about the wild animals on the mountain: bears, mountain lions. Remember, they're on the mountains because nobody lives on the mountains. It's a quiet place for them to live. So always be cautious about the animals that you might encounter. And don't forget, poor access to medical facilities and schools. Being on the mountains or in a mountain range, it's very hard if trouble arises. If you need a hospital or medical care, it's very hard to get to. So, how serious could each of these situations be? Some of them are more important than others. So let's go into more detail about the risks of being and living in the mountains. Altitude sickness is a serious illness. The higher you go, the less oxygen there is, and that can cause serious problems in your body. Also, if you underestimate the temperatures, it may cause hypothermia and you're in a lot of trouble on the mountain face, so stay warm. Depending on the time of year, maybe it's spring and the bears are waking up, but you have to be careful of wild animals. There are lots of them that call the mountain their home. With mountainous areas being very remote, there's very poor access to medical facilities and schools, so you have to keep that in mind. The higher you go, avalanches and landslides become a serious risk. You can put your foot on one rock that slips and sends a whole mountain down towards the valley. You always need to prepare for bad weather, all weather, because it may cut your power supply. You may not be able to charge your iPhone to ask for help. And finally, you have to remember, if there is bad weather, nobody can come get you. You are stuck and stranded, so you need to prepare mentally for a long wait. So I want you to pause the video now and look at this worksheet. We have 4 different criteria. We have serious consequences, less serious consequences, easily managed, and not easily managed. Try and think of some of the risks that we talked about and add them to where they belong on the table. So let's go over this. Easily manageable, serious consequences. Low temperatures causing hypothermia and altitude sickness. These can easily be avoided by wearing more clothes and slowly climbing up the mountain so you can get adjusted to the oxygen levels way up in elevation. Now we have less serious consequences and easily manageable. Bad weather, leaving you stranded, causing road accidents. Usually weather can be predicted, so if you keep an eye on that weather and prepare for being stranded, if you have some food, if you have a cell phone to call for help, then you can stay put and you can hang out for a while until help comes. Easily manageable. Now, serious consequences and not easily manageable. Wild animals. You cannot predict where bears and mountain lions are going to be, but you can stay vigilant and keep an eye out for them. Avalanches and landslides. There's not a lot that you can do, but you can see if avalanches and landslides have happened previously. If an avalanche happened last week, probably not going to happen again this week. So you can keep your ears and listen up to locals when venturing out into the wilderness. But again, not easily managed. And finally, less serious and not easy. You have bad weather causing power outages and poor access to medical facilities. These are things that you can't manage, but you can study and be prepared for in case of an emergency. So before we finish today, I want you to think to yourself, would you like living in the mountains? Is that something that you would like to do? Beautiful landscapes, challenging environments, maybe using some of our environmental protections, our renewable energy sources in the mountain range. Maybe we could save our food and make gardens with a lot of our environmental impacts that we learned from last unit. Is living in the mountains something you would want to do? I personally, Mr. Mo, would love living in the mountains. It's quiet, it's peaceful. Maybe I'll get a bear. Maybe there's a lake so Mr. Mo can go fishing. Wonderful. So let's review. Our aim for today was to be able to describe a mountainous climate. I think everybody should be able to do that very easily. Our success criteria was to tell what the weather is usually like on a mountain. You should be able to tell the difference between weather and climate. There's a big difference. You should be able to find and compare mountainous climates. And you should be able to list the risks associated with mountain climates. Lot of things in today's lessons today, guys. I hope you have a fantastic day. Mr. Mo will be back on Thursday with a live lesson to wrap up our mountain unit. Any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have a fantastic day and don't work too hard. See you next time. Bye-bye. Oh, I also almost forgot to tell you, in the folder, Mr. Mo put you a video that has to do with climate and mountains. Give it a look if you're looking to give yourself some more information. This is just to help you in terms of doing your homework. It is not mandatory, but enjoy. I am sorry for forgetting.